It's wonderful to be here, and I am approaching 18 years in Japan now. I have the best life you can imagine, if you like living in Japan, which I do. I've lived all the time in metropolitan Tokyo, which is around 40 million people, translated to 4 times Sweden. And it's a wonderful place. I could talk for all the 30 minutes about it, but I won't. This is what drew me to Japan in the beginning, the martial arts of Kendo. And I do this a lot, I take it seriously. And I do practice with the Imperial Palace Guards, the personal bodyguards of the Emperor of Japan. So that's my pride. Okay, so what I do, I help non-Japanese companies to do business with Japanese pharmaceuticals. And I do this in various capacities. I can be just a representative, I can be a supporter, coach, I can also be a mentor or an agent or a sales representative. It matters what the customer wants. I'm quite flexible. And I see myself as a catalyst to make business happen. That's what I like. I like also when people grow, so both things. And for clarity, I never invoiced a Japanese company. So there you go. Oh, this one is a little broken. Okay, so let's talk about what Japan is. We have a biopharma boom. It is the second largest market in the world. We have a government who is wholly supporting this industry. It's considered one of the 9 key industries of Japan for the future. And the government put in $25 billion into making Japan the world-leading bioeconomy by 2030. And $25 billion, that is enough money to make a huge difference. So think about that. It comes with many things that happens. And what they want to do, and there are so many incentives for international collaboration between academia, business, academia, and business. Japan really wants to stand out as a country that is not insular anymore. They used to be, but they don't want to be in this industry. They have realized that we need the world to grow. And one of the things you can check out on the internet is GTB, Greater Tokyo Biocommunity. Everything you would ever need as wet labs, animal testing, various types of laboratories and what are called hubs and things are there. And it's listed in a good way. Let's talk about the Japanese language. It is very complex. Wa here means harmony or peace, depending on context. And everything that happens in Japan is based in harmony. So the problems come with language barriers. Luckily, this industry is inherently global, and you will always find English-speaking people in all the companies. So that's easy. You need to build relationships before you start building business. So you need to establish rapport. You need to ensure that your ambition and your willingness to work with your partners for a long term is there. And you need to manage the expectations. Aligning the expectations of your partners, your suppliers, your customers, your people in Japan. Without that, you will not succeed. I know this presentation is a little bit over the top, but I enjoy that. Oops. So the stakeholders, the main ones that you need to be aware of and work with is, first of all, the PMDA, which is the regulatory authority, and I want to underline, I am not a regulatory consultant. I don't do reimbursement. So please don't ask those questions, okay? But they're very important. They only work in Japanese, so you will probably need a local partner for this. Then we have the JBA, which is the Japan Bioindustry Association. They are the mother of FIRM. So the Bioindustry Association, they do everything bio, except regenerative medicine, ATMP, and CGT. So that is part of FIRM. And JBA and FIRM, together with one more organization that I won't talk about, they organize BioJapan every year in Yokohama. And it's Asia's largest and arguably best trade show to be at. And I've already met people today who were there last time. You also have much help from the EU-Japan Center, and especially if you're an SME, they also have loads of reports and data sheets that are important. They're free of charge. And in Japan, you also have JETRO, the Japan External Trade and Investment Organization. They not only have fantastic reports and data sheets to help you, they also give you support. They help you with target lists. They help you understand the ecosystem that you're looking into for free. So you don't need consultants like me for that. So the homework you can do yourself quite easily. So how do you become successful in Japan then? Well, the first thing is to understand this thing about respect. We usually understand that quite easily. It's very important in Japan. You will never find a whole country as prepared for everything as the Japanese people are. So customary, this is an example, you send out a presentation 2 days before an important meeting with some notes. And all the people on the Japanese side of the meeting, they will have read this, they will have made notes, they would have created questionnaires to be answered during the meeting. So they prepare on a completely different level than at least I was used to when I lived in Sweden. The politeness level is, if you've been in Japan, it's everywhere in society. Even when you need to push yourself onto a train because it's full, people do it in a polite manner. I talked about harmony, and I talked a little bit about ambition. If you're not ambitious, why would anyone want to work with you? This is one of my favorite words, gaman. It is that very special Japanese sense of patience. I'm sure you have seen it in movies. And so in order to, what you can expect from doing business in Japan is one thing, but what you need to do business in Japan are basically these three things. You need a budget. You need to have a budget that is realistic. You need to have a plan based on reality, not wishful thinking. And you need to be patient. It does help if you also have passion for what you're doing, because that is something that always shines through. And passion equals ambition. And maybe all of you know this word, gaijin. It means foreigner. And as foreigners, we need to forge strong relationships in Japan, building rapport and building trust. So you need help from the locals. You need like lawyers, HR, regulatory consultants, you need accounting, you need scriveners, you need real estate agents, you need places to work. So when you work with this, I think the most important thing is you need to think about working side by side. If it's a customer, if it's a supplier, doesn't matter. You need to work side by side because life is tough. But if we work together, it can be a little easier. So the key market drivers then that you should bear in mind. So the first one I would want to highlight is aging population. I'm sorry I put it in number 2, but that's a small glitch. The aging population of Japan means that, first of all, it's the oldest society in the world. They're approaching an average age of 60 years, which means that cancer and many other diseases like Parkinson and neurological problems are highly prevalent in Japan, which of course means the market's quite nice. It's a rich country. They have 120 million people, give or take. So historically, Japan has been insular because the market is big enough. You could make, before large molecules came around, all the companies were basically focusing on the domestic market. But now that we have seen the rise of the new modalities, Japan has opened the borders. So some of the organizations that they had, their only purpose was to make it difficult for foreign companies to do business in Japan. They put up so many trade barriers and they constantly invented new ones. Foreign companies were allowed to join the industry organizations, but only up to a certain point. It was a glass ceiling, but they could not be part of the important decisions. The tragically murdered Prime Minister of Japan, Abe-san, he asked these organizations, or actually he made them change this completely. Now your job is not to make it difficult to enter Japan. Your job is the opposite. Your job is to make it easy as possible for foreign companies to come here and compete with us and help us be stronger, help us learn. And also, of course, help the Japanese people to be more healthy. So I would just go out on a small tangent, and this is why I like Japan. It's one of the reasons. So that year when Prime Minister Abe was shot, do you know how many other people were shot to death in Japan that year? Think about it, it's 120 million people. 0 other people, that is correct. So 1 gun death in a whole year in that country. So it's a safe place. Okay. When it comes to regulatory support, the PMDA, the regulatory body, they have opened or are about to open an office in Singapore and in the US. Unfortunately, not in Europe. And these offices will simplify the way to take the initial contacts with the PMDA in your own language. So that is a good thing also. So the ecosystem is becoming increasingly collaborative in Japan. And for investors, and please don't ask questions about this because this is a jungle, but if you do it right, your profits from investing in biotech companies or biologics or whatever are tax exempt. So that means that Japan had a big hurdle before with lack of funding, but now it is the opposite. Funding is rife. Okay, next Japanese lesson, majide. This means sincerely or honestly, like you could say it really. And I like this slide. I took it from the internet. I looked for a long time to find this, but this is from an official Japanese organization under the government, and they put together some data. It's so boring if I say it. Just, if you can read it, please do. And you can make your own conclusions. I will just be quiet. I just assume you have read it. Let's move on. So in Japan, there is a special verb called nomunication. And nomu is the Japanese word for drinking. And you know communication is the English word for communication. So nomunication is how business is actually being conducted in Japan. So you have two kinds of meetings. You have the formal meetings where the Japanese will line up 5, 6, 7, 10 people at a table and you sit on the other side. The only things you talk about are the things you agree upon, the things that are good, creating harmony. So you should leave a formal meeting feeling good, like, yes, we are working on the relationship, we are doing things right. And what you never do in those meetings, you don't discuss contracts. You don't do like we want to do in the West. We put the pig on the table and we discuss it. No, never going to happen. It is rude. It is barbaric. And so what they do instead is that usually I take this role for my clients. One person at the other side will be my counterpart. And we will go for coffee, for dinners, for drinking, and discuss the real issues. We don't agree upon you on this bullet point. We want to see it green. We want to do it in a different way. And we try to iron out the differences and the things that we need to have done. So those are the informal meetings. And that's where the real things happen. And usually the informal meetings are very easy to navigate because when you come to that point, the due diligence will continue, but it means they're interested in working with you. So it's a very positive atmosphere, even if we need to iron out things. And when it comes to strategy, you need to also have all these things that I don't want to talk about. Reimbursement, that is a key point. If you can't get a good reimbursement for your product, then it's going to be difficult, and maybe you should look at a different market. Distribution is another strategy that you need to figure out how to do it well, because it is not like you just go and knock on a door, hello, we need a distributor. They will do full due diligence on you, on your products, on your history. It takes at least 6 months, at least, usually 1 year, I would say. So I like talking about the trends. So what I see in Japan, advanced modality pipelines, the number of pipelines in R&D and during clinical trials is just increasing. Every month there are new pipelines being put out there. And not only Japanese ones, also non-Japanese companies having their products out-licensed or working with a partner in a joint venture, whatever capacity. And there is also a large run for precision and personalized medicine. And maybe the most interesting trend is AI. I could talk at length about it. I will talk a little bit about it soon. And this is, I take this one first. So I will bring two cases. This is a case from a few years back. BioForum is a British biopharma manufacturing membership consortium. It's a long word. And they support the large manufacturing companies in the non-competitive space. They are not another advocacy group because all of their work is led by facilitators that are hired by BioForum. And they organize the big companies, subject matter experts in various fields. So they tried to get the Japanese companies to join, but it was very difficult because they were not there. So in 2 years' time, I helped fill up their sales funnel by working with the JBA, by working with important KOLs, and setting up seminar series, just everything. So in 2 years' time, I managed to get 3 paying customers. And to have a membership in one of their forums, the investment is around, depending on the forum, between $50,000 to $150,000 per year. So it's not a small investment. And I'm still good friends with them, even if I don't work with them. I think what they're doing is great. And so I just recently started working with an American consultancy called Ascensio. And they are in the space that is probably the most interesting for biopharma, the AI part, with an estimated CAGR of over 30% over the next 10 years or so. If it's true or not, we will see when we know, but at least the potential is there because there is so much work to be done. From automation to making every batch better than the previous batch when you're manufacturing. And they want to work with the Japanese pharmaceuticals. And so I'm helping them with that. And it is going to be a very interesting ride. I just started, so there is not so much I can say. I'm still learning the ropes. And for me, it's also a very good way to stay relevant, to have a new challenge, which is something I enjoy. Oh, and this word, maybe you all know it. Arigato means thank you in Japanese. And here you can click and get things. I will go back to the previous slide. I just wanted to show you the ninja dog. And with the ninja dog, I say thank you for you coming here and listening to me. Thank you very much. And I'm ready to take questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Stefan. So, any questions? Please, go ahead.
How long have you lived in Japan, and also what are the biggest differences between the Nordic culture and the Japanese culture?
Sorry, could I ask you to repeat the question now that you have the mic?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So the first question was how long you've lived in Japan for, and the other question was the main cultural difference between the Nordics and Japan.
So I've lived there for 18 years, 18, not 80, I'm not that old yet. But I think the differences are very many, but there are some very nice similarities. So we are a little quiet in the Nordics. We like to have consensus. We want to have we want to achieve good things rather than fast things. So those things, as we have them ingrained, it makes it easier to work with Japanese companies. And for instance, for American companies or Italian companies that have a little different lifestyle, it is more difficult. They have some challenges to iron out. When it comes to the differences, so Japan is extremely top-down, as in extremely. We like the flat organization way of thinking. And creativity is not at the top always, because you can have a meeting with the engineers and the boss, and the engineers say, yeah, green would be the best color because of this and this and this. And the boss said, I prefer red. Okay, everyone said, okay, then we do it red. So those are very difficult things. And I think the third one that also makes it difficult is the amount of time things take. Even the smallest decision can take months. So as long as you prepare for this, you will be fine.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for a great talk. You mentioned right in the first slide about 25 billion US from the Japanese state into biotech. How is that distributed into the ecosystem?
Oh, brilliant question. Everything hasn't been distributed yet, but one of the big things that they did and announced already at the get-go was that in order to prepare, you have a question coming up there later. In order to prepare for the next pandemic, because they're Japanese, they don't think if, they think when. And they were so slow to roll out vaccines. I mean, incredibly slow. They were like 1 year later than all the other modern countries. So they have decided that they will subsidize 90% of the cost for building dual manufacturing facilities. So they will have a number of facilities that are GMP approved and everything when it comes to vaccine manufacturing. And at the same time, they can manufacture antibodies, whatever it is they do. So when the next pandemic hit, they will just stop the current production and start vaccine production. So that is the first big thing that the money went to. The other big things that they went to create this greater Tokyo biocommunity, they need money. They're organized by the JBA, Japan Bioindustries. And there are also other projects, but now we're getting down to details. But these are the big things. They also have a biocommunity in the Kansai area called BioStock. So Kansai, it's Osaka, Kobe, Nara, and Kyoto. That was a great question. Thank you.
So thank you very much for a really interesting talk. I was thinking on the step before, so you mentioned what you should think of in the formal meeting and the informal meeting. I suppose that is kind of when you, in our case, meet with a pharma partner at their site, for example. But when meeting at international conferences, for example, and there is quite a short time window where you have 20 minutes, 25 minutes, is there something in particular you would advise on in connecting or kind of in how to create this kind of harmony during those really short meetings where you are on kind of international territory as well and just meeting the BDP people mainly?
Yeah. Thank you. That's also an interesting question, because when you're in international territory, no one can really claim that you should behave like I expect you to. But I also think that we should accept that since we want to work with them, they're the big guy and we're the smaller guy, we need to adapt. And I think we should think of them as we are invited to their living room and behave accordingly. Even if you're on a video call, dress business proper, be precise, be concise, be polite and formal. Especially in the first meetings, you need to be very formal to show respect. And when you do the things that they expect from the first meeting, as they would expect from a first meeting with a Japanese representative, if you do that, you have taken a long step towards a partnership. And then there are, of course, many other things that matter, if there is a product fit and everything, but you need to figure that one out later. So,
just kind of a follow-up question on that, because I've felt that especially with Japanese partners, it's a little bit more tricky being in women's health with vaginal infections, and quite often it's men on this other side from the Japanese companies, given this kind of respect thing, that as soon as we start to... I cannot really feel that I can ask them questions on how these products are used in Japan, for example. Is there something on kind of this, is this kind of going into the respect part?
No, don't even think about that, because they look objectively on your product from a scientific point of view and from a business point of view. And you should be candid with what you have. Just not really putting the pig on the table, but since they have read the presentation and know what you're talking about, be specific. And I would say that it is not a handicap to be a woman in Japan when it comes to doing business. It is a handicap if you want to have a career, but that's a different thing. They will listen to you as well as they will listen to any other person. Just know what you're talking about, focus on the science, focus on the business. And just be honest. It works. I know it feels strange at the beginning. I helped with what's it called? A device to understand when women are ovulating. So you had to insert it. And that was never going to be a hit in Japan because Japanese women will never want to insert anything.
All right. Thank you. That's all the time we have. But thank you so much for a great presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. It was great being here.